Aloha, everyone. My name is Rachel Camarillo, residing in Seattle, Washington. I currently serve as the chair of WIM's local Washington chapter, and I'm also fulfilling a term on WIM's Educational Foundation Board of Directors. I'm excited to join you today for the first ever virtual WIM West conference and to introduce today's breakout session, using structure and strength to build teams and get results, which will be led by Kathy Miller and Shannon Carrolls. A bit more about Kathy and Shannon. Kathy Miller holds the position of Global President with Vertiv Operating Systems, as well as Business Transformation Advisor and Personal Coach with YK 2020. She is a Shingle Prize recipient for large businesses as a plant manager and began her career in operations as a 17-year-old co-op student in a vehicle assembly plant. Following her entrance into the industry, Kathy progressed through engineering, marketing, lean manufacturing, and operations leadership roles. Shannon Carrolls is an operations manager who has led multiple transformations and run operations for Fortune 500 companies across various industries. Through her journey, Shannon has changed cultures in multiple manufacturing facilities through leading employee engagement and empowerment, and has built highly successful teams. Additionally, she has been a driving force in improving companies' profitability and customer experience. Please help me welcome Kathy Miller and Shannon Carrolls as they share their insight and experience in building successful teams to get the results you want.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to be here and talking with you. I just wanted to let you know up front that we are recording and we will be back on live at the end of our presentation to open it up for questions. So please, as we're going through this and you're watching, add some questions into the chat so that we can have a great conversation when the story is over. So today, Kathy and I are going to go through a very brief presentation and talk to you about part of our business transformation that we went through over a 3-year time period. Today, we're going to focus on the true story of building highly successful teams. And with that is something that's very near and dear to our heart and involves all the people aspects of what we did during our lean transformation that we did together. But to start, we'd like to introduce ourselves a little bit so you have some context on where we came from and how we got to be here with you today. So we'll go ahead and start with Kathy, and then I'll go after her. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. My name is Kathy Miller, and I'm the Global Vice President of the Vertiv Operating Systems, a coach, and an author. I started in manufacturing when I was 17 years old as a co-op student at a vehicle assembly plant. And when I graduated from college, that plant that I'd been working at had closed down after 50 years of operation. So it was really a sad way to start the career. But I then transitioned to automotive electronics and went into engineering and marketing. After, about 10 years of doing that, I found that I really missed the factory. So I went back into operations as the superintendent of pressure sensors and did that for about 3 years. I then got called into the general manager's office, and he said, Kathy, we have this great opportunity for you. We're going to pull you out of the plant and put you on the lean team. And I became the global manufacturing leader of Flow. So I did that for about 6 months, went around to the plants and helped with material and information flow. And then I was promoted to plant manager of one of the large plants in Delphi. We manufactured audio systems, HVAC systems, airbag sensors, and powertrain modules. It was during that time that I met Rick Harris, and we transformed the operation into a lean operation, and the plant was actually recognized with the Shingo Award, which was just such a great sense of recognition for the team that worked so hard in a pretty tough industry. Shortly thereafter, I went and worked at Parker Hannifin and became the global leader of Parker Lean System, and did that for 5 years, and then became the general manager of one of their P&Ls, where Shannon and I worked together to transform rubber plants into a lean operation. So Shannon, you want to tell a little bit about your background?
Sure. Mine's a little shorter. Kathy's. I was recruited right out of college. I went to Western Michigan University and graduated with a supply chain degree. And there I was recruited by Parker Hannifin, and I spent a good part of my career at that company, progressing through supply chain training programs for a couple of years and into various supply chain roles. So I did everything from purchasing and planning the plant floor, all the way through import and export compliance and logistics, and then into sales and operations planning as well. And it was during one of those positions where we started doing a lean transformation. And that's when I really found my passion for making continuous improvements and helping people and their jobs become easier. So from there, when I found out that I was really, really excited about doing this and wanted to take my next step, was when Kathy took the general manager position. I reached out to her to see if she had any opportunities. And in fact, she had one for a multi-site lean role. So I took that position on, and that's when we went through our epic business transformation. And then from after that, I decided to try my hand at running plants. So I've been running plants for the last 7 years or so. And then most recently decided to take a totally different shift in my career path and start our own company. So Kathy and I started our own company called Op Sisters, and we'll talk to you a little bit about that at the end. And we're doing consulting coaching. And again, I can now claim that I'm an author as well. So it's been a very exciting journey to get to where we're at, to be here with all of you today. So as we jump into why is our story important, and we think about, Kathy and I spent a lot of time talking about some of the accomplishments we've had, especially as we're transitioning our careers and the paths our lives are taking. And we thought, gosh, we had such great business results, but why? Like, what made it so impactful? What made us feel the need to share the story? And it really came down to multiple things. One, we talked about how there's still not a lot of women in executive roles in manufacturing. We wanted to be positive role models of what that can look like for any young women that are coming in or interested in operations or STEM in general. So we thought, gosh, we could really share how we did this. And not just from a tools perspective, but about the culture and the people portion of it as well. So overall, our story demonstrates how making this transformation improves the culture of a workplace, from safety to inclusivity, improving the profitability of the business, and providing enhanced value to the customer. So we really tackle all of those topics. And then Kathy, can you share some of the other reasons why we felt so compelled to tell our story?
Yeah, I really think this is an important story because it's an example of how women can mentor other women in the workplace. As we know, manufacturing's pretty much a male-dominated industry at this point. And when I was growing up in operations, I didn't have a lot of role models who were reaching into the organization and advising me and teaching me and making sure I didn't, get myself in trouble as I navigated tricky and rigorous days. So we're hoping by sharing this story, it's an inspiration of a different model of how relationships can be between women in the workplace. One where there's room for all of us at the table, one where we support and uphold each other as we strive to achieve our organizational and our personal goals. And, one where the line is blurred between being a colleague and being a friend.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree.
So all of that is so important to me. But what was even better about all of it is that we experienced through developing this welcoming culture and this inclusive culture is that we actually got some really great business results. Over the 3 years, we transformed 3 plants. And on this slide, you see the results from one of those 3 plants. We had a 74% reduction in injury rate, a 50% improvement in profitability, 25% increase in sales, 16% improvement in productivity, 93% improvement in quality, 45% reduction in work in process inventory, and a 54% reduction in lead time. It makes me tired when I look at these these results now, Shannon, and all the things we had to do to get there.
And we even double and triple check them because there's still times we're like, God, did we really do that? And we're still blown away by it, even though it's been years since we've done this together. But it truly is impressive. And as a result of the transformation and the culture piece of it as well, we were also recognized as a lean model plant within our company, which is one of less than 10% of all the plants globally with that honor. So we were really, really excited to achieve that as well. And it was just such an honor for the people too, to be recognized for all the hard work and the change that they persisted through while we pushed them.
Yeah, it's really important that you take time to celebrate, and even though Shannon and I are telling the story, there's so many people who contributed to it. Whether it was Rick Harris, who was our lead sensei, whether it was the people on the leadership team leading every function, HR, marketing, pricing, IT, supply chain, engineering, all those functions, right? All the office workers, all the people who ran the presses and the team leaders and all those, they were the ones that adapted to the change of how we did business and made it happen. So we want to make sure we recognize all of their contributions as well. Shannon and I could not have done that alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you see these great results and then you say, well, how did you do it? So collectively, Kathy will walk through some of the things all the things that we did, but today we're really going to focus on that building the culture of engagement. So just to get you a summary of all of the inputs that went into those outputs.
Yeah, there really were a number of things that we did along the way to build that culture. First of all, we set the vision that we wanted a culture of continuous improvement and create a healthy and sustainable business where that business would actually grow. We use the tools, which so many people are now familiar with from the Toyota Production System, not only in our plants, but in all of our business processes as well. Everyone, and I mean everyone, had a piece of working on the business, not just in the business. Whether you were like on a problem-solving team in the office or a high-performance team in the plant, you knew your connection to the customer and how you could make things better by adding value and creating value, and you were given the time to work on those sorts of problems. So we focused a lot on lead time reduction and waste elimination, and it always became clear when we accomplished something or fixed something what the next level of improvement would be. So today, like I said, we're talking about that culture of engagement. And it sounds like a great initiative to focus on, but we didn't really have a label for it at the time. We were really busy trying to hit our production targets, our financial targets, and it was just something that evolved as we went along. And we're working on all of the Kaizen events and all of the aspects of flow that we really needed to do. So it started with connecting the rubber parts that came off the presses to real products and how these products made the world a better place. So people had to know when they were coming in during the day that what they were working on wasn't just a black little rubber part, but it was something that would help feed people or help move people or help provide security. And we tapped into a lot of untapped potential for our team, whether it was to use our plants as sales tools or engage our engineering team in new ways to foster creativity and flow ideas, or asking our marketing manager to come out and take a look at a safety incident that we were trying to make sure never happened again. We engaged the press operators in setting up the best way to change over their equipment and make different parts. We tapped into the potential of our employees' families who really expressed an interest in what happened in our plants. They came to our celebrations and our picnics, and they even helped help us make calendars that had messages in them that told everybody in the plant that, we want you to come home safely, mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. We tapped into all of those potentials, and we had a lot of fun, and we ingested a lot of ibuprofen. Yes. But we did laugh a lot.
Yes, there was maybe a little bit of wine involved as well in our nightly meetings that we would have, and I think it's worth noting that we say this like it's a natural thing and like it was easy. It was not. I mean, this took a lot of time. It wasn't like we said, okay, we're going to give you guys some time to work on the business and everybody was super excited. So it just took a lot of cultural change and a lot of discipline and a lot of continuing to, just tap into their minds and hearts. And that's something Kathy and I have always said, is that we needed all the minds and hearts of the people in order to be successful.
Not just their hands, right? But their hearts and minds as well. And so that was really, really important. And I think what Shannon and I are really proud of is we really stayed true to who we are as people at the core. We knew we were people who'd been brought together at this time and place to contribute to the world through our roles in this business. And if I can take a moment to talk about a culture of engagement, I think it can be summarized in 3 simple words. And these are the words: other people matter. It's that simple. Other people matter. Chris Peterson, who's a famous psychologist I've been recently learning a lot about, he really coined that phrase. And in reflection, in retrospect, I think that's what really helped us build our culture of engagement. You know, manufacturing is a lot about making great products, but those products are made by people. So manufacturing really is a people business.
Yep.
You know, it's about that person who plows the parking lot at 4 o'clock in the morning between 3rd and 1st shifts. They matter. Or the person who greets all of our visitors when they enter our business, that person matters. The person who fixes our computers or processes our paychecks or creates the bills of material, maintains the mold, sweeps the floors, invents the new products, negotiates with the union, leads the factory, inspects the product, writes the newsletter. They all matter. They matter to themselves. They matter to each other. They matter to the business and their families, and they matter to me. And even though running $100 million business is busy and challenging, and it's filled with all sorts of opportunities and pressures and goals and deadlines, I wanted each of them to know that when they crossed my path, they meant something to me. I saw them, I heard them, I challenged them, I upheld them, I felt their pain, I shared their joys, I celebrated their accomplishments, I made them put their safety glasses on when they didn't want to, because maybe that day I just cared a little bit more about their eyes than they did. I made sure there were fresh paint on their walls, clean ceilings over their head, and ice in their machines in the break area. I let them shine with whatever gifts they brought to work, and I made sure they went home safely every day to people that mattered to them. It's that simple. Other people matter.
And I love that Kathy says that, and she makes it again sound very simple, but it's not easy. And I got to experience a lot of my leadership growth by understanding her leadership and the fact that how much she cared about the people. And I'll never forget, we were having some safety issues and Kathy sat up there and I mean, almost tears in her eyes. And she just finally said, I don't know what else to do. I've been giving you guys the tools, the training. I don't know what to do. And everybody walked out of that room like, God, she really does care about us. And it just started to flow through the organization, how much she cared about the people. And for me, learning that as well. I mean, I always knew that you needed to engage everybody and have those relationships, but it just struck me as a whole different way of leading. And I really took that to heart as we progressed as well. And like Kathy said, the way I could do it the most was listening to them, listening to their opinions, their advice, helping, explaining why I couldn't help if I couldn't. And then, like Kathy said, celebrating their wins and understanding their frustrations. And that was a big opportunity for us to address it at different levels in the organization with different roles. So it takes everybody to care about others to be successful in these types of business transformations and business and life in general. So thank you, Kathy, for going through that. And now let's switch gears a little bit, staying with that theme, but let's talk about some of the other things that we did as we were building a culture of engagement.
Yeah, one of the things that we did was we really got involved with virtues and people's strengths. And one of the strengths that I was identified with during that period was compassion. And probably what I was talking about on the last page really, strikes people as compassion. But I'm also a big proponent of trust. I think trust is very productive, and I think it's really efficient. And I give trust freely. Some people say, "Oh, you have to earn my trust." I mean, I say that to my kids, but in business, I give trust freely, and you have it, and it's yours to lose. Yeah. Now, once you lose it, it's not necessarily very easy to get it back, and that's where my unofficial leadership style comes in, and I call that leadership style tough love. So, everyone has a seat bus until they prove to me that they don't want to go in the same destination that we had talked about during our vision. And a detour once in a while, that's okay. If you run into a pothole or, construction zone or something like that. But jeopardizing a full bus of people by willfully taking them in the wrong direction or not treating other members on the bus with dignity and respect, that's when you lose your seat on the bus. And it's not fun to drop someone off, but it has to happen sometimes. And taking those sorts of actions, it really doesn't hurt your culture of engagement. Ironically, it actually helps it because people want to win and they want to be successful. And they don't want people around who can't or won't get with the program to ruin it for everybody else. So that's a hard lesson learned as well, in terms of the culture of engagement. And communication, you have to over communicate when you're leading a division through this sort of transformation. It's an absolute must. You got to do it deliberately. You have to be clear, you have to be concise, and you have to repeat it over and over again, the same messages before it sinks in for people. Yep. And I think one of the things that is really important to a culture of engagement is optimism. It's really important when you're a leader because people watch and listen to everything you say and do. And it is a great responsibility and it can be exhausting. It really can. But you've got to be optimistic about the future, not unrealistic, but optimistic. And there's this great quote that I love about optimism. And it says that optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Shannon, do you know who said that?
Helen Keller.
Helen Keller did say that. And so I thought it was like so inspirational because, here's someone who had so many challenges that many of us don't have to face. And yet she chose to, live her life with optimism. And so, on bad days, I like to read that quote. I've also been studying optimism, from Chris Peterson and a lot of other people who are really positive about life and other people. And scientific studies have shown that optimists expect good things to happen to them. They experience better well-being during difficult times. They have better relationships and they cope by moving towards a situation instead of avoiding difficult situations. Optimists even live longer. So, optimism is considered a strength in most cultures on planet Earth. It supports goal achievement, well-being during difficult times, and supports self-efficacy, meaning that, your behaviors are really going to have an impact that you want them to have. So did I feel optimistic every day? Shannon, did I feel optimistic every day?
No.
Sometimes it was really hard, but there are ways to nudge yourself towards optimism and to ask yourself questions to get yourself in a better place so that you can lead the organization. Like, how can I anticipate something positive? Is there an opportunity here? What about this can I impact? What are some alternatives for making this better? What actions can I take? And this one is really important. Who can I reach out to for support? Sometimes these jobs have a lot of rewards, but they can also be very lonely. So sometimes I had to lean on other people to give me a boost of optimism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that is not something that I excel at. So knowing that Kathy is great at optimism, she often had to lift me up as well, because it's when you're going through these, it's hard some days to pick yourself up and keep going, especially when you feel like everything is against you. And some days you feel like you're the only one who cares or is pushing. And whether that's the case or not, sometimes you just feel that way and you need somebody there to be able to support you and say, hey, what good came from this? And then let's just keep going. You can do it. So it's great to have relationships like that, whether it's up or down or horizontally across the chain, it doesn't matter. You just have to find those people that can help you. And the other things that we really did was Kathy talked about communication, and in conjunction with that is around transparency. So you have to be very, very transparent about what you're trying to do, whether it's, all the way from the vision to the little pieces that you're trying to move from point A to point B and how you're going to do that. And doing that in a step-by-step whether it's visuals or however you're going to do it, if it's task list and here's step 1, 2, and 3, posting those so everybody can see what your plan is and what you're going to do, because there's nothing worse than coming into work one day and finding out that the whole way you're going to do your job, or where you're doing your job, that you've done it for the last 20 years, is different, is uncomfortable. And it makes people very, upset that they didn't get to participate in how they do what they do every day. So being able to communicate and share all of that visually, posting it all over the place, is a huge way to bring the culture along, and it incites all types of conversation, like, oh, what's this? What's coming up? And then we would incorporate that into all of our plant communications as well. Okay, next month, here's the big major milestones that we're trying to achieve. All of that leads to a better culture and engagement of the people. And then one of the things I spent a significant amount of my time on was breaking what we've always done, right? So many of the people in the plants have been there for a very long time, 20, 30, 40 years, and they've been doing just fine the way that they're running the plants, right? They still have business, they still have customers, the plants are still running, they're fine. So getting that type of conversation going and breaking that, well, we've always done it this way, why do we have to change? And explaining that with a significant amount of patience, also helps bring the people along. And again, Kathy and I talk about this from the beginning. Everybody doesn't have to buy in right away or believe you. They just have to be open to some of the change, and they'll get that from trust and communication and all the things that we've been talking about so far today. And then lastly, one of the things that we found to be a huge proponent in moving us forward was this culture of learning, having open door policies, being able to trust that they can talk to you about their frustrations or their difficulties in their job, and that you'll actually do something about it. And really, one of the things that we encouraged was to try and fail. And as long as you're protecting the customer, it's okay to fail. So when we did that a lot, right? And what we would always tell the people, and I think made them feel a little more comfortable with the change, was if it doesn't work, we'll just change it. And if what we were doing before worked better, we'll just put it back. Nothing's permanent. And as in a culture of continuous learning and continuous improvement, nothing is final. So we were always encouraging that change. And I think that made a big difference as well. So now that we talked about some of the guiding principles that we already went through, we're going to share a little bit more about the aspects and tools that we use to support and build that culture.
Yeah, accountability is key when you're driving change through an organization, or really when you're not driving change. Just when you're leading an organization, if you're going to achieve any level of goals, you have to drive accountability. You have to have SMART targets for yourself and your team. And when people are not putting in their best effort, sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations with them. And if you aren't comfortable with constructive confrontation, right, and constructive feedback and those sorts of things, and you ignore things and walk past things, the organization can go to a place you don't want it to go pretty quickly. So it's really important that you hold yourself and your team accountable to really high standards. Okay. Structure is actually, interestingly, another thing that may seem counterintuitive, but it's really important for engagement. People need to know where they fit in the organization. They need to know the cadence of how things are going to be reviewed, how things are going to be communicated, how they interact with their fellow team members. When you don't have structure, it does tend to lead to chaos. But within structure, creativity is a great thing to have. But setting the boundaries and sort of the guide rails on where you want people to go really helps you move a lot more quickly. Mm-hmm. And a culture of engagement also includes diversity and an inclusive environment. So when I talk about diversity, I'm really talking about diversity of thought, where everyone has a seat at the table, and that's all about making sure you create an environment that's safe for people to be their authentic selves and bring the very best of themselves to work.
And then the last two things we focused on were coaching and fun and recognition, which we talked about a little bit already. But the coaching piece, as Kathy mentioned during that accountability portion, is it's not just about, it is about holding people accountable to dates and project timelines and things of that nature. But there's a lot of coaching that needs to be done, not only from a leadership standpoint, but if you think about it, some of your most critical positions, whether that's frontline supervision, any of the operators on the floor, there can be a lot of coaching that's involved around just change management and that itself, let alone the fact that they've got to come to grips with the fact that their job may be changing. They may have new leadership in place, and there's just a lot of coaching that goes around that. And coaching can be a little looser like that, or it could be much more formal, like, hey, let's meet every single week to talk about this. We would meet every week with the team members on the floor. Hey, here's what's coming up. Here's what you guys can expect. But coaching across to your peers as well and up and down. So Kathy and I spent a lot of time coaching as she was helping me develop my leadership style. And then I spent a lot of time coaching those surrounded with me that I'm pushing through all this change. And so there's a lot of frustration, sometimes tears, and sometimes anger, and sometimes excitement. And all of that, you have to develop your coaching skills to be able to move the organization forward and have the people want to come with you. And then lastly is the fun and recognition. So we did a lot of things that we, sometimes think were silly, but they were fun. During Office 5S days, Kathy went out and bought all kinds of stickers and rewarded people with them. And we took before and after pictures of what they had worked on, so they felt important. And of course, then I always put slideshows together to show people, look how amazing this is, with a little bit of elbow grease and dirty hands, what we can accomplish. So we did silly things like that. Or when we finally got one of the plants air conditioned and we sent Kathy pictures of everybody in coats and hats because it was so cold in there, just to thank her. And so we tried to infuse fun in everything that we did. And then every time we hit a milestone or the team solved a problem, we would present it out to the whole plant and sometimes the division, and then we would celebrate. We'd have a group lunch. We would recognize people for bringing forward great ideas, and we did that in a public setting. So then people knew, wow, they really are listening to us. And, we're here a lot and we spend a lot of time together. And it's tough. It's tough work. So there's got to be a little bit of fun that gets fused into it as well. So one of the last things Kathy and I want to share with you that we have found to be so important and so huge to not only our success, but our team's success is using our strengths. So a lot of times we talk about when we get feedback and coaching, we talk about like what we have to improve on. But what Kathy did, and I don't even think, like she said, we necessarily knew a name for it, but inherently we just talked about, hey, what are we really good at? And let's do more of that. So when we look at, Kathy and I did, it's called a Gallup Clifton Strength Survey. And as we were starting our business together and thinking through how this was also successful. And so these were our top 5 themes. So when Kathy and I looked at them, we were laughing so hard because although we know we're very different, we are almost polar opposites of difference when we look at our strengths. So as you can see in that top line, my number 1 theme is around executing. And then at the bottom line, Kathy's number 1 theme is around relationship building. And that's almost my last. So we were able to recognize that and really push each other to lead to our success. So Kathy, do you want to add on a little bit to that?
Oh, yeah. So I'm the relationship builder, right? So I'm the one who's making sure people who are leading teams are also great team members. I'm, negotiating when people aren't agreeing with things, to bring things to revolution. I'm picking up the pieces sometimes when the executor here on the line, is, plowing her way forward. And Shannon's the person, she just gets stuff done. She has a pace she sets, she has a goal, she's a high achiever. Now, here's the thing that I would tell you about her though, right? She's not going to let anything stop her from getting things done. So if you're really struggling to go on that path with her, she's going to strap you onto her back and carry you with her so the team is successful. And so it's really, really important to find people that are different than you and put them on your team so that, there's times for execution and there's times for relationship building and everything in between. And it's really great to have someone that you can count on to, really shore up areas that you may not be as strong at on the journey.
Absolutely. And vice versa, right? So Kathy would often remind me, like, okay, let's not forget that there's people's feelings involved and you need to include everybody. And so it goes both ways. And again, I said this earlier, but being able to learn about that relationship building, and I think in both aspects, Kathy and I can say that we learn from each other's strengths, and my relationship building got better because it's her strength, and then vice versa. Um, Kathy, although she's already great at executing, she can still, she's like, God, you're relentless. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, but you're great at building teams. She's like, I know. So when we go deeper into it, and this I think is really, really interesting, because as we go deeper into it and look at our top 5 themes, is when you can really see how different we are. So why did we work so well together? And Kathy kind of already mentioned this a little bit, but she builds teams. She sets the vision. She connects with people in a way that is just, it's truly, it's a skill. Like genuinely, it is a skill. She always knows when you're talking to her that you are the most important person in her world at that moment. And not a lot of people can do that, myself included. I work really hard at doing that. But she also has this piece of discipline in the executing, that she doesn't waver. So she can build these wonderful teams, but she has the discipline to follow the vision that she has set with everybody. And she ensures that that is going to see itself to fruition. So it's such a great combination of strengths that allow teams to come together and be successful the way that they are.
And Shannon, she just really knows how to take an idea, however half-baked it is, maybe just the seeds of an idea, and she knows your vision, and she's going to make it into something that's productive, something that's going to help move the organization forward, something that's going to help the team be successful. And like I said, she's not going to lead with worrying about necessarily how people feel about things, but when she recognizes that there is a problem, she may recognize it through the fact that, oh, this isn't going as slowly, or as quickly as I need it to, or we're not getting the results that we need to get. She does pick that up, and she does bring people with her. But she always gets things over the finish line, always. She absolutely never let me down and brought her team members along with her. And, that's priceless. It really is.
Thanks. And again, the reason we're doing this is actually, it's easier for us to talk about each other than it is for us to talk about ourselves when we look at our strengths. But when we combine these things, and this is what Kathy was mentioning earlier about, diversity and inclusivity, is when we combine these strengths and then think of all the other, themes that there are around relationship building, strategic thinking, and you get all those people on your team that have those strengths, and then you're unstoppable. And so it's very important. And we're not saying you have to do this type of strength assessment, but something to understand who your team members are and how each other knows them. So I could go to, a Kathy or somebody else and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? And it all just goes back to that type of high performance team, to be honest. And that's where we keep driving from to get our results. So to finish up our little talk with you all today, I hope you can tell that we are very passionate about our topics that we, experienced, and we're continuing to experience as we shift our careers and find new interests in each other and in our personal and professional lives. And we're so passionate about it that Kathy and I have created a business called Op Sisters. We have also written our full story into a book that'll be coming out this fall. It's called Steel Toes and Stilettos. And if you are interested in connecting with us, here's our website. You can go to our website, see what we have going on. You can sign up for our updates or read our blogs, and hopefully we can continue to share our story with all of you, and we can continue to learn from you the same. And Kathy, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, again, thank you so much for taking time to listen to us. We love to share this story. And, It's about a lean transformation. It took us 3 years to do, for the 3 plants that we were focusing on. But we're not really focusing on the tools because a lot of people understand the tools. We learned this from Toyota decades ago. We hope we gave you some insight into maybe the softer side of making these things successful. And I think it's just really important to conclude by, it's how you bring a team along to embrace the major changes without losing who you are.
Absolutely. And with that, we will close. Thank you all for your time, and we will open it up for questions.